welcome to Stampscaping 101. Let's get to this scene. I've been testing out my new paint pens and enjoying those quite a bit. Coming up with some, I don't know, some different, I guess, processes, trying to discover what I can do with them. And I tried an autumn scene that I really liked recently, and I thought I would do something again. Okay, this is the Quaking Aspen, number 238G. Okay, now to get color in these types of things, I don't draw outline designs typically, so they're solids or they're tonal designs, okay? And that describes different things like shape and volumes, all right? So we can't just stamp something like this out and color in like a coloring book the fall colors. So what you do is if you want color inherent in your impressions, what you do is you just color these images like so. And for something like fall colors, I'm thinking, with aspens, I'm thinking of, golden tones, but within that space as it's turning colors, I like to have a little bit of green in here too. But here's the thing, I used to go for this, and I used to get all my color in my impressions like this, but with the paint pens, it's not as significant a, I don't know, process, because we can just color our leaves right back over it with, a certain degree of opacity, okay? Meaning we can put lighter colors right over the top of darker colors to get the color scheme that we're going after. Okay, now I'm doing a lot of blending on here of different tones. You might think of it like your watercolor painting, a stamp, so that when you stamp that out, you'll get all those different colors and color blends and whatnot inherent in your impression. But like I said, you don't have to think about it too much, because we're going to, at least in this process, we're going to be using the pens on it, so I don't have to get things exactly the way I want it. Not that I do anytime anyway, because there's a lot of variation that can happen in that type of coloring right there. All right, now I'm just going to do a quarter-page scene. I did a pretty large one last time in that half-page slimline to really experiment around. But here's a rock right here. It's the boulders with lichen, and I'm going to mask it off. Masking off of Stampscape stamps is not hard unless you just cannot do like a really easy mask. A lot of people could have, developed, and for good reason, really good masking technique. You cut out a mask exactly, to the shape of, an outline design, because you don't want overlapping to happen within the outline styles of design. But with tonal designs, you have to kind of, well, you don't have to, but it'd be best if you kind of, got rid of, oops, I didn't press hard enough right in here. But it doesn't matter, because we're going to color that in anyway. But see that right there? I don't know. I make mistakes too. I don't see it really as a mistake. Actually, I'm going to color it in, but I can just go like this. Here's one of the things with tonal designs, right? Okay, so let me get that. Now I could, if you were stamping this on your stamp positioner, you can just hit it again, right? All right. I don't really use stamp positioners, but you can just go like this, right back in here again, and, fill in that area. It's no big deal, right? That's what's, good about tonal designs. You just kind of pop another thing right in there. You don't have to get it right exactly. Again, if it's an outline, then you have all these weird outlines going everywhere. With this type of thing, you don't have to worry about it. I don't know, maybe that was a good thing that happened then. Okay, but see those different colors in there? I mean, that would be pretty good for just, an impression, but the paint pens are really fun to use on these things too. Okay, so here's my process. I didn't really explain it when I did that first impression, but I usually do some sort of general toning. It's kind of I usually go kind of mid-value, you know what I mean? Like a 50% value of some color. This brown right here is about a 50%, in terms of light and dark. White being 0 and black being 100. on that sliding scale, this is about kind of a 50% brown. And then what I'll do is I'll come back into it, and I won't spend so much time on this one. I spent a lot of time on the other one. Yeah, I was going for that shrunk in there. I even missed it right there, so I just went 2, but it doesn't matter, okay? And here's, I don't know, you can just use whatever colors you have. These are Marvy brush markers, okay? Now, everyone used to use these, then somewhere along the line, just, I don't know, they were just completely forgotten. There's a new group of stampers, and, I haven't used these a great deal myself either, so... But most people have come to start using pads, naturally, in the stamping world. So pen coloring was just kind of forgotten about for a long time. Coloring directly on the image. Some people don't know how to do that or have never done it. They just always stamp everything out in black, and then you color in. And there's a lot of great media for doing so. So, it stands to reason, that, the Marvy brush markers were just kind of forgotten about, but everyone used to use these at one point in time. And this is pre-stamp pads, because these were the pens that you could color in, and they weren't fine lines, so you wouldn't be kind of shredding, the tip of, your pens and whatnot. So they were perfect for that. Okay, now I'm going to go this one again. I think my surface is a little bit uneven, too. I've been doing a lot of heat setting lately, and it kind of... I don't know, my desk here is a little bit, or my self-healing cutting mat kind of bowed a little bit, so I'm a little bit uneven here. But just have a big stack of paper underneath it if you're using, if you're stamping with acrylic blocks. Maybe I need to get a few more pieces of paper underneath. And usually when I have a lot of surface area, I'll stand up. I don't think I stood up the last time. All right, so you get that. Get a full impression. I did go over the front of that, but hey, that's some leaves going in front of my rock. No big deal, okay? So this is, I don't know, it just represents something. It's going to be on a little slope. I'm going to have some light coming in from this way. And I thought for this scene, maybe I should go like this too. Check this out. I would normally never do this, but, we're going into this scene here with the idea of somewhat opacity, okay? These are all transparent colors that we're going with, right? So I would normally never do this, but since we're doing this with paint pens, I can go over some of this with my paint pens, and hopefully it'll look like this lighter tree is in front of, this black rock, or darker rock right here, okay? All right, so let's give that a try. So adding this down here like this, we might as well kind of explore the full capabilities of our paint pens. I might even spray this in between or during the process of adding some of that paint in here, okay? Now see this right here? If you stamp something transparent over black, the black is going to show right through, right? But see, I'm going to be adding some of that element of opacity in there, so maybe we can do things like this. I've been waiting for opacity in stamping for a long time, and it just hasn't existed. You can use gel pens or something like that. And I do have other paint pens, but they're smaller ones. I've just never done it with such a kind of a large degree of, I don't know, kind of opacity usage. I don't know how you would explain that. But okay, so these are some different colors right here, I happen to have a set of these pens right here, and they are, it was a 24 pack. So there's a pretty decent range of certain colors. Certain colors don't. I don't know. I wish I had like a brown, but I don't know. There wasn't one, but not a bad set here. You have to shake these up every time you use them. Any type of these are the Artistro paint acrylic paint pens. They separate when you don't use them. So to get the most opaque mark, you really have to shake it up good every time you use it. But that's a good thing, though, because that separation and the viscosity of the media in there is the thing that keeps it from clogging on you, okay? So we we want to have to do this, you know, because that's the only way to get that type of, you know, non-clogging type of, you know, situation. Okay, so this is drying right here, but I want to get a little bit of color in the background. I'm going to keep this one pretty simple in terms of a color scheme. I want to use my my light rays coming into this scene, okay? So what I want is I just want some... Oh, I'm going to go with the light blue. I figured that... I mean, you can do it in sunset or something like that, too. That would be kind of interesting as well. But I thought the blue would go really nicely against the yellow of the aspen trees in here. I got to do these aspens sometime in green too. Aspens look beautiful in green as well, but I don't know. People, you know, when I think of aspen trees, you know, it's like photographers usually go out in the fall foliage more than go in spring foliage. You know, in the spring they're taking pictures of flowers and stuff like that, not the green trees like green maple leaves and stuff like that or whatnot. But I don't know. I should do that sometime. Okay, so I'm going to have some light coming in from that side, so I'll probably have some of this blue, like this over here, and yeah, I'm going over my trees, and it's influencing them, you know, certainly. But this is a really light blue right here, so not really any big deal. And plus, like I said, I'm going to be putting some other colors in here anyways. All right. Now I'm picking up some of that yellow, yeah, but I'm not too worried about it. And plus, this is a really light blue right here, okay? Now, this is just a paper towel, so... you can use whatever you want. I don't know. The paper towel works fine for me. Okay. This is a summer sky, memento, and it's very, very light in value, okay? And by the way, this is a silk weight Mohawk Everyday Digital. But you can use your matte cardstock as well, okay? But you can try it on your glossy cardstock if you have it. I'm just using my I'm using my this one right here, this cardstock, just because I don't know. I think the paint I don't know. It grabs and it absorbs into the surface a little bit faster than if I was doing these paint markings on glossy, okay? Each dot would just take a lot longer to dry and to set up if I was doing it on a sealed surface. I don't know, maybe you'd get a pure dot though, but I think I'd have to do a lot more heat setting, you know, in the process, and that's just something you know, when I'm making these videos especially, I don't want it to take any more time than you know, than what I need to. Okay, so adding this in, you can see right down here, I'm adding it in a rock. Okay, now here's my little lesson on lighting. I won't talk about lighting too much in terms of my tonal coloring here, but you see where I'm leaving this a little bit lighter right there? Let's go into it a little bit more. Let's go into gray, okay? I'm just using the same paper towel here, but see where I go into this? This is one of those things in lighting. See it in my sky, too. I've left a little area of light up here. I mean, there's hardly any contrast, but I'll use a darker blue. But in each one of your areas or objects, if you leave an area of light, then you are not only coloring, but you are lighting your scene, okay? When you color in the whole thing, you know, which isn't wrong, but you can color in the whole thing, and you're doing more coloring. In something like this, you're creating lighting when you retain some areas of light, okay? And in terms of a technique, in theory, you're doing less work, right? Because you're not coloring in the whole thing. You're putting on the brakes, so you are putting one extra layer of consideration in terms of your application of media, but it's not a harder technique to do. Okay, it just means that you're doing less, but you're thinking about something in addition to filling in or applying color to a certain area. Okay, now this is a Memento Bahama Blue, okay? Watch this right here, okay? I'm kind of adding this in. Got a little streak up there, but no big deal. See, as I add this in, we're creating quite a bit more contrast here, but watch this. Now see, I'm using my drier version of this too, okay? And that's how I can get this transition of tone in here, okay? But watch this here. Now, I'm coloring in, but I'm not coloring in the whole area, right? I'm kind of leaving an area of light in here, okay? So now, the scene is colored, right? But it's also illuminated, all right? Because we have a little area of light here and an area of light down here, okay? So that is your lighting. I always tell people, though, yeah, instead of, when they're first learning this, though, I mean, like I said, most people get it in the first try. You know, that were in my workshops, I just showed them how to do it and what to retain. So, and then when they're starting to color, I just say, okay, yeah, why don't you keep that area a little light there, or whatever, you know, and they do. But sometimes when you're used to coloring in whole areas, you're used to seeing something in totality in terms of filling in like a geometric space, which is outline styles of designs. They're just used to filling in the whole thing. So it's kind of a different mindset of putting on the brakes somewhere. But see, look at that rock down here, how nice it looks. Doesn't it look much more dimensional, being that we haven't colored it in? If it was colored in all that tone right there, you know, it would look flatter. It wouldn't look as round, okay? But there's more mood to this scene right now because of the retention of a lighter area. It doesn't mean the retention of white. It just could be, you know, if I've colored in this area in here, all that blue, and I thought, oh my god, I lost all my light. Then you can just come in here with a darker blue, and then what would that blue in here look like? It would look lighter, right? So, at no point in time, unless you've gone all the way to black, you know, at no point in time can you not illuminate your scene. You know, as long as you can keep going darker, it's fine. Okay, so that is that. One paper towel. Look at this. You can use it. I don't know. That was all. That's how much I used right there of this paper towel. Look, I have all this other area, you know, that you can use. I don't know, you can probably do 10 scenes with. I don't know. This is like a half paper towel too. All right. Okay, so that is that. Let the fun begin here. We're going to do a lot of different things in here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into my tree here, and let's just start applying some paint, okay? Now, I'm not going to do coloring in. I'm going to see each mark of mine like I'm adding a leaf into my scene. So I'm not seeing this as like a whole space to be colored in, okay? I'm just going to be adding these little areas of light. Okay, now just in theory, all right? It might come into application a little bit. Oh, here's a couple other pens that might be kind of interesting. I see this is light right here, so I think I'm going to have my lighter leaves on this side. And maybe this is a separate tree right here, so maybe some of these branches come in front of this one. So I might go light, light, and right up here on the tops of these trees, I might go with lighter versions of dots up there. Maybe white, you know, or down here it might be yellow. But, I mean, it's not as if we're going to say like something like, oh my, would there be a light leaf right here? Would that be wrong? It's not that, you know, technical. You just start laying it down. Okay, so I don't know if you use some of these colors. Yeah, okay, I've used this one. All right, so 3mm paint pens, okay? So you just kind of start adding these little dots down. Actually, in terms of the size of a paint pen, it's not so little. These are actually some pretty big dots as far as that goes. But, you know, when it comes to, you know, a mark on this page, you know, fairly subtle. But, yeah, but in terms of the size of paint pen, these are fairly large. We're used to working with typically 0.7 or 1mm paint pens, because that's what, you know, most people used, you know, for a long time. in stamping, not the kind of these bigger fat markers that people use to, paint on, a side of a coffee mug or something like that, drawing, putting some design in it, or doing rock coloring. I don't know how many paper crafters do rock art. That's where you're drawing on a rock. I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I've just seen it on videos. Okay, now see this one right here, where see this tree down here you can barely see because of the black behind it, and then in addition to I've toned it in, so this is a way to just go back in here. I'm not adding like a dot onto each leaf that's on the design. Okay, that'd be way too tedious. I'm just kind of going, over, a whole area, and hopefully this kind of looks like some sort of shimmering little kind of, I don't know, like I said before, like a stamp, like an impressionistic type of look. Okay, now remember where I've overlapped some of this rock down here. I said, well, okay, maybe we'll just have some overhanging leaves here. So you come into it with the paint pen now, okay? This. All right. Now, this color isn't what I want in the end result, but this is just kind of providing me with a base layer. This is like a 20% value. I guess it's beige. They don't say the colors on these pens right here, but it's my base layer, and then I typically work lighter. I might go back to darker too. So you can go dark, lighter, lighter, lightest, and you can go dark over that. So you get this kind of overlapping, layered look to it. Okay. I tell you what, let's have, how I put a little bit of a green into my coloring of the leaves. You can't really see it too much because it's blended in so much with the yellows. But let's come into, let's say some of these aspen leaves, are, they're not fully turned yet. So I can layer some of this in here, but I don't want it to be the prominent color. The prominent color I want it to look like is yellow. So see, if I lay some of these light green dots down, they'll be kind of buried partially with the yellow and white too, okay? So you can just kind of lay them down first, whatever you want to be kind of a base layer color. All right, kind of coming around. Yeah, I mean, it's looking a little bit more three-dimensional to me at this point in time. Everything's blended in pretty well, but again, I haven't hit it with my kind of main colors, which will be the the yellows, the brighter yellows, hopefully. Now this might be a point too where I might spray seal. I'm not sure. I did notice that when I use these pens, I think it looks a little bit brighter and lighter when it's wet. It's kind of like pigment ink. Pigment ink looks much lighter when it's wet. Okay, but here comes a real kind of aspen, yellow types of colorations here. Like I said, you don't have to worry about kind of a placement. I'm certainly not. And what I was talking about in terms of kind of missing this area in here, you can see how insignificant the impression part of it was where I missed that area because I'm just, I toned it in anyway. And then you can texture it in, color it in, whatever you want to call it, whatever we're doing here. Kind of, you can condense your dots like this. Each little dot of yellow doesn't have to be a separate, dot. You can overlap and group. It's kind of coming alive. It's starting to do that little shimmery type of thing that I was hoping for. That's what I'm always hoping for in the depiction of light. You always want kind of this kind of shimmering type of look to look as if the light is coming from within our card, you know, and illuminating, you know, our location or whatever. It's always the illusion of light coming from within the card. It's never light, you know, we're just working with contrasts when we're working with you know, a white piece of paper and, you know, darker media applied over the top of it, darker than white. So, but that's always the goal. It's to, you know, it's the depiction of kind of light. You know, there are trees here, so we can say, well, it's a depiction of trees, but in theory, it's really the depiction of light that you are going after when it comes to, you know, reflective art. Okay, adding some of this down here. Whenever I do these types of things, I start thinking back to fall colors and whatnot, when I've seen in, I don't know, hikes and trips and memories. That's one good thing about kind of doing scenic stamping, you know, when we're doing these types of things, if we're stamping a lake, maybe, you know, our memories kind of go back to, you know, a trip to the lake or something like that, or a specific time, you know, in our own history. But they can also be transportive. It feels like when we're doing these types of scenes, it's like, I'm going to put some of these leaves down on the rock, too. You say, what is that, you know? But in fall, you know, you have some of these leaves falling, you know. They can even be in the air like this, you know. Like so a little bit of the wind is coming through. But yeah, when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about this hike in Estes Park, Colorado, Rocky Mountain National Park. Hiking in the upper elevations of Southern California to Aspen Grove. There aren't too many aspens up there anymore, but the Sierra Nevadas have a lot of aspen, California. Alright, but that is that, okay? It looks like a hot mess in some ways, but, you know, when I bring in all my white pigmentings, it tends to bring everything together. This is another yellow right here. It's a little bit of a different hue. I think I, you know, took care of most of my yellow with the other ones, so I'll just use this one's a little bit lighter in value, so it, you know, it does influence kind of the end result in terms of the feel. It's just a kind of another layer of hue in this, I don't know, kind of grand tapestry or whatever that we're kind of going after. Flip your cards around where it's easier to access. I can access easier down here. Okay, but when I want to come up here, if I don't want to put my hand in the paint, you know, so you can see me always kind of flipping my card around. All right, and let's go white. You can say aspen leaves aren't white, okay? Yeah, I know that, but when you get light reflecting off things, you get different tonations, okay? It's like this wood here isn't white, but you know, when it's going like this is kind of this reflection of this light right here. It's reflecting the light. So you see some white on, you know, a piece of wood like that even. So this is just going in and it's adding in kind of lighting within the scene, okay? And it's making the trees look more three-dimensional, you know, the more values that you add. white is just one of those kind of lightest of values, so it's really taking advantage of that, upper range of values, potential values that you can use. Alright, I'm going to put a few little textures on my rock down here. We have this little area of the rock illuminated, right, where we've retained some of the lighter areas of it and didn't color it in. Well, you can reiterate that lighting by putting in light values back into the piece, in the form of these little white dots, okay? See that? You can see the dots on there, but you're looking at arm's distance, viewing something, it just looks like, lighter tones in there. Okay, now what we're going to do is our next step is we're going to add in some light beams into this, but I'm going to let this set up and dry. It shouldn't take too long before we add these beams in here. I have a lot of thick built-up paint, like right in here. I don't know if you can see it. When you see it up close, there's some of these little dots are kind of glistening, so it tells me they're still wet. So I don't want to kind of lay down my paper on here and start adding in some white pigment ink and, I don't know, kind of subduing some of that. I might actually spray seal this as well. I'm not sure yet. It just depends if there's anything else that I want to do in here before I can spray seal, but I don't know. Or I don't know, might do what I'm going to do, spray seal, and then come in with some additional paint. This paint will stick to anything. But see, I've lost some of the really bright colors of yellow because I think it's kind of blending in with the colors underneath, which is good in some ways, and then in terms of kind of the incorporation of separate colors and getting them to kind of merge a little bit with the other ones. But some of them I want it to really pop out at me. Like when I lay these little yellow dots down, they're really crisp, and quite opaque. But yeah, when they dry, they're a little bit more kind of mellow. So I think I'll do that on this one. That was, I don't know, that was my theory of something that I could potentially do with the pens, is to spray seal with a workable fixative and then just go back in there over the top of it. But first, we'll get some white pigment ink touches done in the scene, which I think it will bring in some drama, and I think it'll kind of enhance kind of this idea of this shimmering, kind of reflective light in the piece. And I'm going to have it coming from right in here, this open area where I've retained my light source. So, okay, but we'll give this about 10 minutes to dry. Okay, we're back. I gave it about 15 minutes or so. The surface is largely dry. I get a little bit of a residual moisture, but it'll be fine. Okay, so I have some white pigment ink here. You can use whatever type of white pigment ink you want to use. I'm going to use the Brilliance White. It dries a little bit faster, well, a lot faster, but being that we're working on this kind of matte paper, like a Hero Hues or Unicorn, basically any type of white pigment ink should work just fine. Okay, so we just have a piece of copy paper. I've just torn it in half. I'm going to use it for its straight edge sides. Okay, now for my kind of focal point, I'm going to put a white dot, okay? I think I'll be able to see it. But basically, it'll be really close to this one branch right here, okay? Just so I can remember it in case I lose my dot. But that will be my vanishing point for my light rays. Maybe, yeah, that looks okay. Okay, so I'm going to have some light beams coming through the trees. I might have it coming in front of some branches, and I might have some going behind some branches, okay? We'll see how it goes. Okay, so I want emanation, though. I want it to look as though light is emanating from one area. Okay. So I want, what I'm going for is kind of a thicker application of media closer to the source of light. Meaning, when you ink up your applicator, I just have a cotton ball. I'm putting more ink here towards the source. Okay, now watch this. I'm tapping it for a while, okay? And then I'm kind of moving it slowly in here. It depends. You have to gauge how much ink you have on here, okay? If you don't just do it by time. I mean, if I have 5 times as much ink on here, then I might stay over here, a lot longer before I start moving in here. But see, as I start moving it across like this, now it's getting very dry on my applicator cotton ball. So see, I'm transferring less of it off of the applicator, okay? So more, build it up, and then as you move over here, maybe use less pressure too. And you have your beam, okay? So that's not, as opaque as I want it, but you can always add more, okay? So always kind of see, what you're doing and how it's affecting your overall, okay? If you can use more, you can always put more. But that's better than putting too much and then, I don't know, kind of having to wipe it off or something like that, okay? It's like adding salt to food you're doing, you know what I mean? If you add too much, it makes for a tough meal removal. Unlike salt, though, there are certain things you can do, If you get too much of it in there, then you can darken up some of the areas or something like that. So, but I just say, hey, if we don't have to do something, I'm trying to remove kind of the potential need for additional processes. Okay, now see, I can see some of my tree right in here. I'm going to have my next beam going from, coming from behind one part of the tree, but in front of the other tree, okay? So, like this, I'll have it emanating from behind one tree and going in front of the other tree, okay? It just makes things look a little bit more dimensional that way. See this right here? In front of this tree, but see this beam right here is in back of this one, but in front of this one, so, we're adding a little bit of depth to it. Yeah, okay. I am going to re-ink my pad here. It really does need some new ink. Okay. Just even it out on there a little bit. Okay. Every time you re-ink, take that into consideration. You might be applying a lot more. I have a lot of cotton that's built up on this surface right here. You might be applying a lot more media, so adjust accordingly, okay? So now, let's go like this again. Let's go over this beam. The beams are going to dry darker than what they look like when they've been freshly applied. Okay, so be careful about it. Couple taps down. It didn't change it too much. I guess I didn't add as much as I thought. But see, that beam looks a little bit stronger, so just adjust accordingly. Okay, and this one's behind the closed tree, in back of that one. right. And let's go like this. You can change the width of your beam too. You can have it, wider. You do it narrower. I like to have a kind of a range. Oh yeah, one of the things I want to do on here is I want to color the trunks of my aspen trees white. Okay, let's grab my white paint pen. Okay, I'll just do this. I'll need to kind of straighten out some of these trunks, when I get to it. Okay, and I'll give it some of the white branches, a little bit of covering too. Now I'm not really staying. I'm just kind of inventing some branches, where I don't see some, because I think that white looks really good on the interior in there. Right? Yeah, it looks better. Looks more aspen-y, okay? Like that. See that white in there? Like that. Okay, so let's keep on with this, with these beams. Okay, see I'm going across that, those trees on the right-hand side. Now let's go across some of these. You don't have to evenly space your beams either, okay? In fact, I think it looks better to have them a little bit irregular, have, a lot of space in between some. You have to kind of look and see what you've done. To make the determination if you want to, add more somewhere or another, but you just do it one beam at a time. Okay. Here. I can add quite a bit in the sky because it's really quite light up there in that area. Okay. Now you can see these beams over here are quite a bit darker because of the color underneath the white beams. So that being said, if you ever go too light, let it dry a little bit too, because it might dry and it might look much darker than what it looked like when it was freshly applied. So that, I don't know, it kind of works for you too. Sometimes things don't look, quite the way you want it to, but then it just kind of mellows out and it kind of just blends right in with the surrounding area, just because of that drying kind of value change kind of dynamic. Alright, so see that? Everything's kind of emanating from all that single dot right there. But now look at these beams right here. They're really quite faint, aren't they? This one's a little bit more visible. But the source of emanation, I'm going to take and add, freehand some of this light into this too. We'll have it really, the tree that's right next to it, will have this tree really capturing some of that light on here. Okay, so kind of, tap it down and taper it off like a little bit. Yeah, it doesn't take too much tapering though. Okay, add some of this down here in these trees as well. Looking like it's kind of really glowing in that, that strong light within that space. Yeah, it's really looking like kind of that emanation of light within the scene, don't you think? A little bit more so. I'm really adding quite a bit right in this area right here, right where that source of emanation is. All right, I really need to put a lot more on this beam. I want this beam to be fairly strong, and it just keeps kind of mellowing out. Like I said, it can be a good thing too, because, you know, if it looks lighter than what you want, like I said, you can always apply more ink right over the top and really build it up, so like that. Maybe that's too much, but like I said, when this dries, it gets darker, or it doesn't really become darker, it really becomes more translucent, where you get some of those colors showing through it. Alright, so I'm really putting quite a bit on this left side of this aspen right here. It kind of balances out some of those rays too. I mean, if we have all these strong rays in there, it would stand to reason that the source of lighting right in here would be lighter. Okay. All right. All right, we'll let that set. I think that looks pretty good in terms of our light beams, and it adds a little extra dynamic to the piece. I guess this beam could be a little bit stronger too. You can barely see it actually. Here. I'll go like this. I'll just kind of go one side. Sometimes it's good to go on one side as opposed to both sides. It just kind of makes the beam a little bit more varied. And I'm trying not to go too far that way, but there we go. A little bit lighter, a little bit stronger of a beam. All right. I'm adjusting. Okay, as I'm looking at this, let's go a little bit stronger towards the source of illumination here. See, I'm kind of adding it right here to one part of the beam. Right here. All right, so see that beam stands out a little bit more. But the beams are still fairly incorporated in with the piece, too. So, I don't want it to be so strong that it kind of looks out of place and foreign. All right, so I will let this dry now, and I think I've left this kind of space open right here too for potential quote stamp. We'll see what it looks like. I might just kind of stick something there over the top of it too, as opposed to stamping it right in there. I'll make a determination. But I'm curious about spray sealing this and seeing if I can get some much brighter additional marks with like these two colors as well. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll see if my theory of color application, paint application, I guess specifically, holds true, in that adding these over the top of a sealed surface will yield kind of crisper dots as opposed to getting them to blend in. They look good blended in, meaning that the colors are really incorporated and stuff like that, but I want some real crisp, bright, light dots on here as well. So, all right, we'll see how that comes into play. All right, I'm back, and this card has been spray sealed. First of all, it was given a chance to dry, and then I spray sealed it with a Krylon UV acrylic spray. I was going to use my workable fixative, but my, 25-year-old workable fixative, that can finally gave way, and it was just like, I guess it was like spewing over the top, and when I picked up the can, it was like soft, like an empty cardboard thing. It was really something I've never seen anything like that before, but I don't know. I guess you can't have cans of acrylic sprays or aerosols sitting around for 20 years. I don't know. I'm guessing that's how old it was. I don't use it too often. But now that this is spray sealed, the paints and everything became darker, okay? Which often happens. Things get saturated a little bit more, or a lot more, and the colors change, okay? Now that being said, I'm wondering if I can lay down some nice, crisp color applications here. It's kind of interesting. There's some of these dots that almost look like they became pink in here. I didn't use any pink, but I don't know. Maybe some of the colors from the tones that I laid down. I don't know. They just they altered in terms of their appearance here. Okay, so I'm laying down a lot of these little yellow dots, and what I see right now is what I want. Okay, we'll just see if that's what I get when this paint, I want to say ink, dries. Okay, so laying it down, you see how that really bright yellow looks? Well, that's what I'm going for with these pens. So let's see if you know, we can adjust our process here to achieve the results, the desired results. Okay. Now I speculated before that laying down a water-based media on top of other water-based media, it was kind of blending in a little bit because the water that I'm applying on top of, you know, water-soluble media, it stands to reason that it could put somewhat that media back into solution. Let me shake this up a little bit more too. Maybe while I'm working with it, the paint and binder, which is water in this case, might be separating a little bit. So kind of reinvigorating, shaking up this pen might mix it up a little bit more. I don't know. We'll see. I like what I see so far, though. This is exactly what I want. It looks really shimmery and bright. Okay. Now, if I get what I want in this layer, as far as the pens go, I'm not going to spray seal that paint on there, okay? I don't think I would need to do that. I guess you could in theory, but if I get what I want with this right here, I don't want to darken and make more translucent, make this top layer of paint translucent. Okay, I want it to be nice, and that's why it gets darker when you spray seal it, because the paints become more translucent. It's like when you stain wood or something like that, you know, the layers become more translucent. Okay, so I don't want that. I want opacity. Okay. Everyone know the difference between transparent, translucent, and opaque? Transparent means you can completely see right through something, okay? Even if it's, you know, a colored media. It's like a clear film or something like that. Translucent means you can kind of, you know, light, you know, gets through it, and it's semi-transparent, and opaque means, you know, it's completely, you know, solid. You can't see the colors underneath it, or whatever's underneath it in this case. Okay, so that yellow looks really good, though. That looks really quite shimmery on there and bright. Now, I think when I was doing this before, as I worked on it, it seemed to change. Okay, so we might have a pretty good technique here in terms of spray sealing. Okay, you can try to spray seal with it just about anything. I mean, the most makeshift type of spray you can use is like hairspray. Okay, it's kind of like a, you know, pseudo acrylic spray, but I don't know. We've used it before in things like you know, the school art program, for the students. We had in the middle school there was, gosh, I don't know, what was there, 1,500 kids. You don't use it for every assignment in the program, but we went through a lot of media, so it just, I don't know, to save a little bit of money, we didn't buy like a Krylon. We just bought cheap hairspray, like at Target. Okay, not that the sprays are super expensive, but and the hairspray also dries really fast too. So when you're, kids are, you got 30 kids spraying their pieces, we're not sitting around kind of, waiting for it to dry. Not that the art sprays, take a long time to dry, but I don't know, just anything to, to save time and money. Okay, so there's the white. Looks pretty good. I think that I do think that there is somewhat of a sealant type of quality happening with the media. It doesn't seem to be kind of mixing as much. Okay, I just added my, that being said, my kind of white aspen trunks became a little bit, I don't know, darker. So, see, once I get those kind of aspens in there, let me try a different color here. Here's a kind of pale yellow here. What I do is I put those trunks in there, and then what I do is I go back in with my pen, and I put some kind of aspen leaves in front of some of that, so it just kind of breaks up, so it isn't like it's just a straight, solid white line. Okay, looks a little bit more aspeny. It's real kind of, I call it impressionistic, in terms of the look of it. We have this one down here, just to let everyone know that this one's an aspen as well. Okay. Just get, I don't know, get real freeform with it. Doing a couple little dots looks kind of strange, but when you kind of add it in and bring a lot of continuity to the texture that you're adding, okay, it just seems to make sense from a visual standpoint, from a recognition standpoint. Alright, so there we have it, okay. We'll see how this goes. I think that, I don't know, I think that we have a good formula here. We need to seal off periodically to achieve the nice crisp little dot. You can see all my little white dots in there. Those were becoming kind of darker as I sat here and looked at it. Now maybe that is a good process, you kind of add a lot of those different textures in there, let them blend a little bit, spray seal it, and then come back in and add some refinement so that we get a little bit of textural depth. Things are kind of merging together a little bit, looking a little bit murky in terms of the definition between each dot. So therefore you get the benefit of the blending. But then you spray seal and you put a few extra little dots in here. You can see it, within my rays. I even put, behind these rays in here. Yeah, actually, let me do a little bit more of that. See, in these rays, if I add a crisp little dot in here too, then, I don't know, it makes those rays a little bit more transparent, which is I think, good. But you can get these kind of that shimmery little texture within these spaces. All right. Alright, so I think we have added kind of a good, I don't know, process to this, to these pens here. I mean, there's different ways to use these pens, but I think this is a pretty good one. Alright, now, I mean, you can do all kinds of things here still. Let's say you wanted to add a little definition to these rocks in here. Okay, we can go in and I can add some tone into the shadows. Now, one of the things about using Stampscape stamps is it can teach you to be a little bit more observant, maybe, in terms of values and lighting, okay? So, adding some tone in here, if you look at the rocks in here, there are darker areas to the rocks and lighter areas as well, where I'm adding some additional tone, shadow, using the shadows within those rocks, okay? So this isn't a whole piece to just be colored in uniformly. You color it in the darker areas with the darker tones, okay? The lighter tones aren't going to make the impression lighter, but you can add those lighter tones into those areas like that. Or let's say, in order to kind of bring a little bit more, life to these, let's say I can add a tinge of green in here like this, okay? Now that's a little bit harsh like that, okay? It's like I don't know, maybe lichen or moss or something like that. So you add that in there, and then you can go with your, I don't know, what is this, gray? You can go with your gray, or just a lighter version of that green. Here, let's grab kind of this melon, okay? And see this melon, it's a lighter one, and I'm going in here, and I'm blending those, that kind of darker green in with the surrounding area, okay? I usually like to use lighter versions of whatever hue I'm blending in, rather than just going with the blender pen. Although I do use the blender pen once in a while, but it's most of the times I'll just use a lighter version of whatever hue I'm blending in, so I get the benefit of that hue as a blending value, okay? So anyways, you see that little green down there? I think that kind of changed the spirit of that rock a little bit. It just has a little tinge of green like that. I don't see a harsh line in there because I blended it in. And that's where the spray sealing probably helped a little bit too, because I've sealed it off, so it's not super glossy or anything like that, but that little bit allows you to really blend it in. Alright, so let's format this card. I still think that I've left this area open. It's kind of ripe for, I don't know, some kind of little word stamp maybe. I mean, stamp a bird in there too. I don't know. I'll figure it out, but I think this is a really good format for a card. So we'll see what we can figure out here. All right, we have formatted it. Formatted the card. The scene into a card. All right. This is a gold pen. I thought, why don't we use a little metallic in some of these areas here? It'll be something very subtle, but it might be kind of interesting. First time I've used this gold 3mm gold pen. The ink kind of merges in. Actually, I can see it quite a bit at certain angles. I was going to say it merges in at certain angles when it's not catching that light, but I do see it. I don't know, it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be very reflective at certain angles. So, okay, so I've formatted the piece. I went with the blue Stardream on the edge. I was trying it with gold and, I don't know, just the different gold papers, and it didn't look right for me. Like, here's a foil, I don't know, imagine it like that. It was just too much. It was detracting from the shimmer. So the Stardream lapis lazuli gives, it's a little bit of a sheen, so it's not just straight like flat black, which might have looked okay too, but did that. Just a tiny bit of a border, okay, around the edge to capture that kind of the white, within the space. And another piece of the white iridescent paper that's bordering I used for the quote. I really cut down the quote. It really says Thoreau down here, but I cut that part out because it was cutting off too much of the I don't know, the imagery in the background. So I wanted kind of a vertical stack, elongated stack to go with this vertical kind of formatting here. But I think it looks pretty good in there. I think that's just what it needed up there in that corner like that. So I don't know. And I thought it fit the theme of the piece. I'd normally border this, but I had a little bit of a lapis lazuli going around here too. But I don't know, it was too much within this space. It was just covering up too much of the stuff that was going in the background. So I don't know. Sometimes I work around a quote that I'm going to be using, but this one's, somewhat of an afterthought within the piece. But let's take a look and see these little yellow dots. Okay, now see these ones around here? Those are the ones that I just laid down, okay? And they're getting a little bit darker as it dries, so they're becoming more translucent, but I think they're still fairly defined and looking pretty good. You can see some of those white dots in here too, and those are looking pretty good. So I'd recommend the spray sealing if you do anything like this at some point in time, and then just go over it again with your pens again, to achieve those, a little bit more of a crisper end result when dry. Okay, and it stands to reason. It's just not mixing with kind of moist paint that's been applied underneath it. If we keep kind of just building it up and building it up and building it up, we add water-based medium on a water-based medium, and they're going to probably, merge a little bit. Some a little bit more than others, and especially when you start building it up and you have like, I don't know, 5 layers of kind of moist little dots of paint down. If you add like a white on top of it, it stands to reason that it would kind of merge a little bit. But if you spray seal in between, you can get that a little bit of a crisper differentiation. And I mean, you wouldn't know it any other, otherwise. That you spray sealed in between. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so let's see if I can see any of that gold in there. I don't know if I can see the gold. I saw it when I added it in there. I don't know, it's very subtle. It's so subtle you can't see it. So, but look at that. Can you see that like that? You can really see the texture of that paint in there, can't you? So it's almost like a painted piece. It's like half ink and, I don't know, half paint when it comes to that. So, pretty fun way to use the pens. I think the light rays look pretty good. Incorporated in with this type of thing, I mean, the spirit of this kind of fall foliage for me is what it looks like when it is backlit with light. Might not have the crepuscular rays running through it like that, but my favorite moments of fall foliage is of kind of walking underneath these things and seeing it backlit. To me, it's like walking through like a living stained glass painting or something like that, and just seeing all these like colored glass, illuminated colored glass, and that's what I always liked about that. But I don't know. So that's where these rays come into play. We'll have to do that with some fall colors at some point in time and play around with the pens at that, with that in mind. And I don't know. So another scene. Hope you liked it. Hope you liked the video. Thanks for tuning in and staying with me for this long. And looking forward to the next scene with you. All right. Thanks again for watching.